Service is taking action to create value for someone you care about. Care is concern and commitment to their future well-being. A life well lived contributes to the well-being of others. Customers today are looking for that which contributes to their well-being. They want something that they assess to be of value to them. It could be quantitative, measurable financial value. It could be emotional belonging, enjoyment value. It could be relational connection, meaning value. It could be even existential life purpose kind of value. When we look at this phrase, customer service, I think it's the general way people listen to it is a carryover from an era that's past, where we'd had product and feature and price and benefits, and then you had service, which was the soft stuff wrapped around it. But I define service as the action that creates value for someone else. So the product designer is a service person, the manufacturer is a service person, the people in the warehouse are doing service, marketing, sales, and of course, the follow-up support for customers. It's all service. So when you think about what do customers want, are you saying that they want customer service like just the soft part? No, they want the whole package. They want action that creates value for them. What makes it valuable? It contributes to their well-being. That's the landscape in which companies and brands are competing today. I think the key here is to recognize that the history of branding itself evolved as part of the whole marketing dialogue, that whole space. And brand became a way of differentiating from the competition, standing out from the crowd in a market where the product itself may be highly commoditized. Imagine something like laundry detergent. It turned out that the brand would be seen as that which would stand out from the others on the grocery store shelf or in the hearts and minds and homes of the consumer, just to use one example. But I think what we're seeing today is in just about every vertical, every industry, B2B and B2C, there's so much available option for customers today. There's new entrants that are constantly emerging. There's convergence of fields themselves. The whole digitization and online play has erupted the world. And so brands need to think differently rather than, or people who are branding people need to think differently. Rather than, how do I brand in a way that differentiates me from the competition? How do I brand in a way that creates more intimacy for me with the customer? More connection with the customer, more I'm being seen as part of that customer's life, not just now, but into the future. That's the challenge for brands today. Well, let's start with the culture issue, and you can ask me about the other ones separately. Human beings live in all sorts of historical social cultures. Some are quite formal and reserved. Some are real wild and crazy. Some of them are, deeply traditional. Others are very frothy in terms of how they change from day to day, week to week. And so when we say, how does a brand locate itself? Is it a cultural issue? Of course, it's a cultural issue. But what makes it a cultural issue is the culture of the customer base. And the brands need to find its way to be relevant in that particular culture, create new value, fresh value, reliable value, trusted value, relational value, not just close a deal and make a sale, but actually become increasingly part of the customer's lives. Now, those lives are located within diverse cultures in the world. That's one of the big challenges for brands today. You can seek to elevate customers from many different cultures to all want, appreciate a particular brand. Let's take YouTube just as one example. But of course, YouTube knows where you're dialing in from, what your prior viewing habits were, and then they're going to adapt the brand experience of YouTube for you in your culture. How does technology relate to that? Technology is the enormous enabler. It's what allows us to do so much more personalization and adaptation for unique customers, even to the point of individual customers. And that's a huge challenge for everyone who is not a digital native. Younger people today, those like us who are really the digital immigrants, who brought with us not only a certain skill set, but also a certain mindset, which really needs to evolve to fully embrace the technical world that's available to us today. Woohoo, an ideal customer experience. Gladly. I'm going to use an industry that is often associated with the word service, but I don't do that to say that that's only where service is located. As we said earlier, service is in every position and in every industry all over the world. But I'll use an example of a hospitality firm because all of us like to go on vacation. And I think many of us at this time would like to go on vacation again. So there's a particular group that I work with. It's based in Mauritius. They used to be called Naiad Resorts, and they had 9 resorts spread over several different countries. And during the global financial crisis, they came this close to bankruptcy. And in trying to come out of the crisis with 3,200 employees, they didn't have money to come out of the crisis with. The only way they were going to survive was to differentiate from the competition, stand out from others. And they couldn't do it by having newer resorts because they had no money. So they realized the only way we can do this is with service. We've got to literally inspire and educate and enable and empower and engage every single one of our 3,200 people. And those are just the full-time staff. We've also got to get the travel agents and the tour operators and the partners at the airport and et cetera to really want to be part of this new phenomenon. So we literally invented a new brand called Lux. LUX with a little asterisk at the end, now known as the Lux Collective, and developed a level of service that was even higher than the 6 levels that I've created that many people know of around the world. Their 7th level is called Shining, and it's even above the unbelievable level. And then they just doubled down and tripled down on the education of their staff, the inspiration for their staff, the ideation that came from their staff. And an example then I can give you. You make a reservation, you're based, let's say, in Europe. It's you and your spouse and your 2 kids. And you've been looking forward to this vacation and you're going to go for 8 or 9 nights. And, your time is incredibly precious. And what normally happens when a family like that gets to a resort is they spend the first 1 or 2 days, looking around, right? Getting familiar, like what's here, what's there, what's going on. And then they start to settle into their vacation. And too soon the vacation is over. Well, one of the things that Lux has started to do is that the moment the reservation is made, someone from the resort reaches out to the family members, even though they're in Europe and they're not coming for another 5, 6, 7 months, to find out who's coming. What are you looking for? Tell us about your lives. Tell us about your kids. So by the time the family arrives, they know that what you've got is an exhausted executive, a spouse that's really looking forward to some intimate couple time together, but they've got this young teenage kid, and then they've got, kind of a toddler. Oh my goodness. So the good news is that with those prior interviews, the moment that family gets to the resort, standing right there is someone from the spa, someone from the rooms division, the chef, and somebody from sports. What's going on? Well, the person from sports looks over to find the 13-year-old boy and says, hey, we're about to do some sand volleyball and we're missing one person. Can you play? And of course, the 13-year-old up and away. Then you've got the chef with the tall hat who goes down to the toddler and say, we're going to make pizza soon. Would you like to come to the kitchen and learn how to make pizza? Woo! Off goes the toddler. And then the person from the rooms division says, let me get you in the buggy and down to the resort, get you settled, because our colleagues here from the spa, they've got a couples massage booked for you. It starts in about 60 minutes. Welcome to the resort. Now, what's happening here? A completely different service experience because you've got a hospitality brand where every single person on that property knows that they can make each moment matter, and they care about what matters. Matters to who? Each person who comes to the resort. Very good question. You used a word there, by the way, that I also use, which when you said caring for the customer. Now, how is caring for the customer different than serving the customer? Now, these are 2 abstractions that are very closely related, but they're not the same thing. So service is taking action to create value for someone else. We touched on that earlier. And that was the definition that I wrote and I built the whole business on and served companies all over the world with for about 25 years. And then I realized, oh my gosh, my definition actually needs to be updated. And so I've rewritten it now as, really authentic service is taking action to create value for someone you care about. Whoa, wait a minute. But not all service do you necessarily care. For example, if you sell cigarettes, you may be creating value for your smoking customer, but I'm not sure that you really genuinely care about their future well-being. So then what is care? Care is concern, like, oh, I care. But in our working world, it's more than that. It's concern with commitment to the well-being of your customer. And notice that being is a verb. It's a happening. It keeps going. So it's not just in this moment of the transaction. Authentic care is concern and commitment to the future well-being of your customers. How do you do that? You take action. What's the action called? Service. So service is taking action that creates value, contributing to well-being. Care is concern and commitment to your customer's future well-being. Now, these are two abstractions. If you want to build an entire company culture, if you want to build a brand that's known for doing that, you're darn right you need people from the top who understand it, believe in it, are willing to invest in it, are going to commit to enabling that with and for their team, so their team members feel like the leadership is really concerned and committed to their future well-being, so that you can build the culture that takes that kind of care of your customers. You're probably expecting me to mention books that are in the space of customer service, customer loyalty, customer experience, customer journeys. No, I'm going to offer two books, two of the finest books I've read over the past several years, and I read about a book a week. So the first is called The Invention of Yesterday. The Invention of Yesterday. Now, many people have read Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens, and it's an outstanding book by a historian. This is the corollary to that book. And in some ways, if you had to choose one or the other, I'd say for marketers, go this way. It's called The Invention of Yesterday. And what this incredible writer has done is he's literally written a history of the world that shows how cultural narratives evolved in different parts of the world, how they then came up and against one another. And he invented a word called bleshing. Bleshing is like the blending and the meshing of cultures. Now, remember earlier we were saying that every customer was raised in certain cultures, lives in certain cultures, assesses value out of the background of tradition of certain cultures. Where did those come from? If you're a marketer or a branding specialist, you're not doing it on an empty tabula rasa, a white space. No, it already has huge historical background. And so that would be number one, The Invention of Yesterday. The second book looks the other way. It's called Ministry for the Future. And it's written, another sizable book, but it's written by one of the world's finest, most awarded science fiction authors. Now, I'm not really a science fiction-y kind of guy, fantasy worlds and aliens and spaceships. No. But that's not what this book is. This is a work of fiction that's based on science, and it's in the immediate future. So he starts out with, I won't do a spoiler here for anybody, but basically it's that the Paris Agreement occurred, and yet the implementation of that didn't really manifest for a few years. And at a certain point, the world woke up. I think we're waking up right now, and literally created at an international level a ministry, a global ministry for the future. And I invite branding specialists, marketeers to study this, because it really narrates the changing social space, the changing landscape of what human beings care about and value. What are the conversations that are emerging, not just out of the past, but into the future? It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Robbie.